Hello and welcome to another episode of Awakened Unfiltered. I'm your host, Erica Barreto, and I am so happy to introduce you here to my special guest, Nicole Spencer. She is also the host of Spirituality for Skeptics podcast, and I'm so excited to have her here today so she can just talk about herself, talk about her journey, talk about all the things that have led her to this path. And I'm just honored to have her as a guest so that she can share that story with you all. So, Nicole, would you be able to introduce yourself and pretty much all that you have about you and your story?
Yeah. Well, thank you, first of all, for having me. It's such an honor. We've become friends since you were one of my premier guests back at the end of 2025. And we just connected. And I'm just super grateful for you and your friendship. And I love your work, of course. So this is really fun. And when you asked me to be on here, I'm always, of course, happy to share. But I also have gone through this really, I would say, interesting and challenging process of becoming more of a student again. So my background is in building and selling businesses. I've built and sold a fitness studio I sold it in 2015. And then from 2014 up until basically the end of 2024, I was teaching other professionals how to build businesses, fitness studios, online businesses, all the things through the years. I sold that company as well, and then took some time off and had been pursuing my spiritual growth path, we'll say, through different mentors and things I did and things I set out to learn for quite a while, but for whatever reason, felt really compelled to start my show, Spirituality for Skeptics, again at the end of 2025. And it's been such a growth oriented journey. It's been, as I said, an uncomfortable journey. I had that expert hat on for so long. And so I'm in this place where I get to just play and explore. And that's really hard for people who are always so structured and strategy focused and goal oriented. And so, yeah, I'm just finding what my path looks like. I'm turning 44 in a couple of days. So it's just kind of like having a really positive midlife crisis, I would say. That kind of summarizes things right now. Yeah.
That is so funny. Positive midlife crisis. I love that because yeah, I think that so many people go through that shift in life and they don't know what to do with themselves. But you're right. The spiritual journey, it's one to have no expectations. And that's just pretty much what it is, right? We don't know what the next thing is. And it's really this state of being in flow. And that could be hard, especially for somebody like yourself who has always had this next thing of knowing what's on the schedule, what to do, and times. And that's very uncomfortable. I love how you have just taken this and just kind of put it out there for yourself to just follow that flow. I call it the dance with the spirit, dancing with spirit, and just kind of allowing yourself to flow to what is next and what feels good. And I think that could be hard for some people that don't have that inner trust with that flow and just are a little hesitant on making that next move because they're not sure. That's the expectation. But for those of you who have not watched Nicole's podcast, I highly, highly recommend that you do, because I feel like her being led down that path to have that podcast, it's really very eye-opening. And I think that what she is really putting out there for humanity, the collective, for people that are stepping into their spiritual journeys, there's different outlooks and there really is something for everyone. It's not like she has one level of category. I feel like it's just so many different aspects and takes on spirituality. And I think that it feeds the curiosity, it feeds the soul. And I love it. I could see so much that's going to happen from this. And I'm just so excited to just be on the other side watching. And also such an honor to be on the podcast. But I think the impact you are making, Nicole, I've told you this many times, it is beautiful and it's very eye-opening for the people that are just stepping into their spiritual journeys. And they have so many questions. And you have some amazing people on your panel. And they can provide that for so many across the board for wherever they're at in their journey. And I love that you do that. So as far as your journey and that transition of leaving that business world? And I know this is like, it's very different with this. Yeah, it's still business a little bit, but it's different in the way that you have to kind of let go and just allow things to unfold. How has that been for you though? Like how the transition, I know you said this, it's been uncomfortable, but how do you incorporate the shifts in your daily life? Like how do you kind of go through that flow so you can help somebody out there who's doing the transition themselves?
Yeah. Well, I'm first of all, I'll say I'm fortunate to be in a position where, I sold the company and I don't necessarily like have to figure out work, so I will acknowledge that I am privileged in that way. But this has really challenged me to show up in every way differently with a whole different level of trust. So I have always been a very hard worker since I could get a job when I was 16. I worked, but I was also like a competitive dancer. I was in every spring musical. I was captain of my dance team. Like I don't know. I look back on those times I did well in school. I'm like, I don't know how I did all of that, but I always worked hard from the moment that I really could. And my first career, I was a high school English teacher, and I would go teach during the day and I would wait tables at night, and I would wait tables on weekends and teach dance on Saturdays. And just, I was just always doing so much. And I just kind of thought that the workaholic life was how life was. So I've always been really driven. I remember after I sold my fitness studio, I was really so thankful that I didn't have the pressure of having a business at that time. I was working a full-time job, doing fitness business coaching, and I loved that. And I remember after selling the studio, I woke up on a Saturday and I was like, oh my gosh, I don't have to think about writing emails and blogs for this week. Like I just can do whatever I want. And so I kind of went through that process as well after selling my last company, which I worked so hard for 6 years to build. I spent 15 months transitioning out. And I remember just waking up after I was no longer obligated to anything. And it was just like the best feeling. And so it was exciting for a while. But when you're someone who is really ambitious and driven and who has a lot of internal motivation, kind of just sitting in this in between space became pretty uncomfortable really quickly. But it was like at the same time, I couldn't force myself to do anything. And I started wondering how I ever had time to work so hard. Because, I hike with my dog pretty much every day. I go to the gym. And, by the time I'm done with those things, it's like more than half the day is gone. So I was really trying to figure out how I ever had time to do all the things that I did. But all of that to say, pretty quickly, the idea for the show came to me. I took, I don't know, 6 or 7 months to actually act on it because I knew that I needed the space and the rest. And I love it. It's been one of the most growth oriented things. And I will be honest and say that I'm used to pretty quick success. Like my fitness studio, I would have considered it successful, within the first 2 to 3 months. My last business, I hit my goal the very first month and was making more money than I'd ever made in my life within 6 months. And so I knew going into this project that it was going to be a very different process, right? I wanted to create something that was not only supportive of my own growth journey, but that could help people in a similar position to me. But I also was really feeling called toward creating something where it facilitated what I call non-transactional relationships. So every business I ever had, I love people, right? Like I always have wanted to help people, but there was always a transaction required to truly be able to do that. They had to buy a fitness program or a coaching program or whatever. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I will do not those specific things again, but I will sell things again. But I really wanted to be able to serve people in a way that didn't require any type of transaction or sales conversation. And so this felt really good for me to roll out in that kind of way. But it's been challenging to accept a different pace of growth. And of course, my goal is to have this reach more and more people, but it's not as tangible as anything I've ever done before. And I also don't know the formula, meaning, if I wanted to sell 30 clients into my coaching program in my last business, I knew how many leads I needed to generate. I knew what events needed to happen. I knew how many conversations needed to happen. It was all math. It was all engineering. And now it's just like, this out and hope for the best. So it's really been amazing because I have the freedom and flexibility, but it has been incredibly challenging to, I'll say, the part of me that has that really strong identity that's tied to strategy and formulas and success.
I think spirituality, one thing that it teaches us is to have patience.
Mhm.
And that could be so hard because the human side of us just wants things to go fast. And I think that's something we all kind of struggle with because we have the human aspect of what it is that we want and know of where we are trying to get to. But then we have to lean back and we have to say, you know what, let's just kind of see where it goes. There's the unfolding and the trust. It always goes back to that surrender, the trust, and just knowing it's going to work out. And I feel like every time we are pushed and led to do something, and it's just this thing that just keeps popping up and popping up and popping up, that's literally our souls knocking on the door, our spirit team, our guides telling us, like, hey, we think you should do this. It's going to be great. You're going to see. Because there's so many different aspects of it. And you have mentioned that it has helped you a lot with your own personal growth. And I'm also finding that, doing these podcasts, like it's really feeding my soul to hear other people's stories, other people's successes. And there's so many different aspects of this work, and you're coming from like the opposite end where you're already you're established and you are in a place where now you're moving into this, how do I do something that is that non-transactional? And I love that because, well, I know personally that you're somebody that gives back all the time. That's not something to boast about or say out there, but that's just how you are. That's how you've been on your path, but now it's in a different way. And I love that because both ways fed your soul, but now it's more of an experience where you're learning and taking in for yourself. Just looking at it from this side and just seeing how you have left this to come into this now spiritual path of learning about yourself and also other perspectives. It also teaches me. I have the spiritual knowledge and I'm always learning. I could say that throughout this journey, we're always learning. There's never anything that we completely have figured out. It's always a learning process. I feel like it's just part of our evolution of our souls and how we came here to learn the things that we need to learn. It's beautiful to just witness that and see, okay, well, there's a capability of being in that place and doing this. And now I'm just kind of working the other way. It's inspiring. There's many different lessons in between that I can take. I think that it's just beautiful to see the work that you're doing, the impact. I don't think you really know. Like I have so many of my students who will listen to the podcast episodes and they're just very inspiring for them just to listen. I'm so proud of you. And I absolutely just love our friendship. And I just know that this is going to help many. And I'm going to say that over and over again, because I just feel like you need to know that.
You know, I need to hear it.
Yeah. Like, I feel like you really need to know that. It's so funny because spirit shows me like putting thumbtacks and things. Like, I don't know even if you do that, or like a vision board or something. So I don't know if that's something you do. Have you thought about it? But I feel like that'll help you, or just creating that vision for where this path is kind of taking you, but just still allowing it to unfold in the natural way. As far as your growth and it comes to just your experience with your podcast and maybe even just the people that you've had on your panel, what have you seen shifted within yourself from when you started to where you're at right now? How do you feel that has fulfilled you and really opened up some doors within yourself to push yourself to do something more or see yourself a little bit more clear on the inside? Like, how has that been for you as far as your growth and just throughout with your podcast and just anybody that has been in your life that has helped you and just kind of given you a different vision of life and spirituality overall?
Well, I think two things come to mind. The first just being the connections and relationships. So you and I met for the first time when we recorded back, I think it was October of last year for that episode. And we've been in contact ever since. And certainly, I've recorded, I don't know, maybe 40 episodes right at the time we were recording this. So I'm certainly not keeping that connection with everybody. And that's okay. That's not the expectation. But I would say the relationships and those connections, I guess I just didn't think about how powerful that would be for me. So, I would say that is one of the greatest benefits. And I think the second thing is, and I'll just be really honest about this because hopefully it helps some of your listeners. But I think the second thing is that when I'm in trust with myself and with spirit, which is, I don't know, maybe 60% of the time, right? It's like I believe that I can channel information. I believe that I get really powerful downloads. But then for me, it's like something will pull me out of it. So, for example, I'm just being honest. I was meditating like so consistently. And, every time I would meditate, even if it was for 5 minutes, I would get downloads and I would sometimes have to stop after 2 or 3 minutes because so much came through. I was like, okay, I need to write all of this down. The other side of this is actually being able to trust what you receive, because I also have that like dialogue in my head that's like, you're just telling yourself what you want to hear. You're just making up things because you're telling yourself what you want to hear to feel better or whatever. But then I don't even remember what happened, but something just kind of like threw me off. And I did a few meditations in a row where like it was just silent and my own thoughts were so loud that it was just like annoying. And so, for the last like 2 months, I've been off of my practice, and it's always kind of been that pattern. But I think I also realize now that I don't necessarily need to put like formal constraints around connecting with my higher self or with spirit. Like, I don't need the perfect setup. I don't need my mask on and the music playing. Like, I can just kind of have those dialogues when I'm walking. It only occurred to me recording one of my episodes last year, like I'm in nature every single day, that was actually a spiritual practice. And that was a great space for me to tap in and connect and think and reflect. And so I would say there's still a big internal struggle that's happening because I still perceive myself as so not the expert in this space that I'm trying to lend my voice to. My practices, I was really proud of a few months ago, and now it feels like it's all over the place and it's really imperfect. And yeah, I feel like I've just, as I said before, always known where I'm going, and I don't now. And it has definitely been one of the more disorienting experiences of my entire life. But all of this to summarize, like benefits, because I feel like that's more what you asked about. Definitely the relationships for me, and also feeling like it's much easier for me to like tune in and receive downloads and information for myself, and even like read other people's energy a little bit better, even though it's not something I tend to like try to practice very much. I'm not sure that's for me, but I don't know. It was a bit of a ramble, but
No, no, that's fine. I love the rambling, and I always feel like the rambling is where we get all the good stuff. Just going back to what you said about, your practice just kind of being all over the place now. I think that happens to a lot of people on their spiritual path, because I think we get so focused on the spirituality aspect and connecting to our higher selves that we forget that we have this human experience sometimes, that we just kind of have to just do what we feel like we're being led to. And it's actually a very big, important part of the path, even that I see with like my students. They are like, oh, I don't know, I feel like I need to do this. And at the beginning, yes, there needs to be a consistency with things. But I think at some point there's a shift, and it's needed. You had that epiphany that I don't need to do this because I'm doing this, and this is just as good as this. And that's exactly what I feel like you were being led to, because meditation, it comes in so many different forms. It just doesn't have to be sitting with your legs crossed and your eyes and doing mudras and things like that. It can consist of you walking. It can consist of you just kind of sitting still with your eyes open, paying attention to the things around you. I call it's sitting in the presence. I just sit, I'll put my hand on my heart, I'll close my eyes, and I just really just kind of sit and reflect and hear all the things, the energy, feeling my own energy and things around me. It looks different for me every single time. When I first started my practice as an evidential medium, I was meditating every single day. But then, like you, something happened. The inner voice, the ego was just overbearing. It was so much. And I was like, oh no, I can't do this. My mind is too loud. Things need to change. So I wasn't sitting every day. It felt forced. And when it feels forced, I'm not doing it, because now it's taking that experience out of me just kind of being open. And I think that that was a good thing that you just talked about, because again, so many people struggle with that part of spirituality, but there's such an importance of embracing that our humanness, because we did come here for this human experience. It's like the scales. When our spirituality starts to go like this and then we start to go down here, there's no balance. And spirit is always wanting us to have balance. And sometimes things will kind of get a little loud on that side in order for us to pay attention to what we need to do for ourselves. So the fact that that happened to you, it happens to everyone, it happened to me. It's something really to reflect on, though, because it just shows you your growth. You don't need to sit in meditation every single day to receive messages, because now, instead of the awareness coming from within, do you sense and feel like that awareness is surrounding you? Like maybe you'll see things, you get a sense of getting these little epiphanies and signs. And I know it could be hard to trust, because it's almost like the mind tells you, oh, you're looking for it, so because you're looking for it, it's
Yeah.
there. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I'll share two things. Speaking of my guests and relationships and things like that, Afterlife with Arthur, he had told me, because I compare myself to people like him, or people like you, where it's just like, okay, like the channel's open, it's open all the time. You can get all the information you want. And, he said to me that I'm meant to be very, very grounded in my awareness and my practices and how I communicate things. He's like, you're not meant to like be living out here in the spiritual realm. And it makes sense, for me, for sure, as much as I guess sometimes I wish I had that, what I perceive you guys as having. And then Suzanne Giesman, who I just think she's magic. She's just like one of my favorite spiritual teachers. When she was on my show, I tend to do a lot of research and preparation for my interviews, which I think is really good because it helps me to just get past, okay, tell your story that is out there in a million different places. And I can go into, deeper corners of that. And so I said to her, I'm like, okay, so I know you're all about like getting signs from spirit and you tell all these stories. I'm like, here's my experience trying to get signs from spirit. And she gave me a little bit of a reframe, right? Because a lot of people are saying, okay, ask, spirit to show you, I don't know, my example was like 3 butterflies. And then I saw a million butterflies. And I was like, of course I saw butterflies. It's like the spring in the mountains. And so she said, why don't you ask spirit what they're going to show you? And I was like, okay. So I did that. I sat, and the first thing I saw was an inchworm, which, even in nature, they're tiny. Like those can be hard to spot. And then it was like 2 weeks went by and I still hadn't seen an inchworm. And I don't know if it was, again, I'm just like, I don't know if I created this, but then I ended up having a dream about an inchworm. And I was like so excited because the sign finally came. And then after that, I would say ever since then, I've seen inchworms, I don't know, once every week or every other week. Like I saw one from the car the other day. I walked into one the other day. So again, who knows if it's the reticular activation system. Am I saying that right? Like your
Yeah,
RAS,
I get what you're
something like
saying.
that. So I don't know, I don't know if it's that or sign from spirit. So this is what I still do, where I'm like, not just able to accept the magic. I'm like, it could just be my head doing this thing. But I don't even remember the question that you asked to start with, but for whatever reason, those examples felt relevant.
No, it did. It did feel relevant. We were talking about signs and how,
Yeah.
some people can find it so difficult. And, I think it's so healthy, though, to question things. Like there should absolutely be a healthy dose of skepticism to have you question the things around you and question, oh, okay, is this really me or is this spirit, But again, there's a level of trust that we need to instill within ourselves and also in what we receive. I remember at the beginning of my path, like I was like, all right, spirit, if this is a yes or a no, I need to see, I always use the same one, a blue lobster. Show me the blue lobster, because if I see the blue lobster, I know I'm supposed to be doing this. And I would see it. It was like the craziest thing. I'm like, where in the world? And I'm like, that just can't be a coincidence. And I tend to be out there. I'm like, okay, I trust and I know that they're going to show me this because this is what is supposed to be the sign. So I never really questioned it. The way like my team will communicate with me is through numbers. And it's kind of one of the first things that I did, because I was just like, hey, I'm tired of seeing 111 and 444 and 333 and not knowing what it means. Like, hello, can you please help me understand this? And then I was in a meditation. It's actually something that I teach my students, is we can create that language with them. And because I feel like the universe speaks in numbers, they taught me, well, let me know what you want to hear. How do you want us to bring these conversations to you? So I programmed, like I was sitting in a book and I was thinking about okay, you know what, Spirit, whenever I am thinking about something and I see a synchronicity, that's the meaning I'm going to give it. So that's what I did. So now when I see 2, 3, 4, I know that I have to pay attention to my children because there's something within that realm of me needing my attention to be there. Never fails. I know that when I see 333 and I'm thinking I'm going into Target and I'm like, I'm going to go get this one thing, and I leave with like 100 things, I'll see 333 and they're like, no, 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 you're not going to spend money that you don't need to spend. So let's go in there for what you came for and leave. So, I have programmed that synchronicity and numbers to communicate with them, and it's been helpful for me since. And some people do find it helpful, and sometimes it won't work, but that's just how it is. What works for me might not work for you, and that's just something I tell people all the time. Try it out. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, try to sit with your team and see what comes up. What is the language that they will communicate with you? And it could be so many things. It could be music. It could be all types of things. But again, it just comes back to that trust. Like, am I really, or I don't know. But, I think that comes with time and just kind of allowing things to just be what it is. And it just takes that moment of just letting go and just trusting. And it's so hard, especially when you're being faced with a very difficult decision that, like, if I don't do this, this can be maybe detrimental to me and where I'm trying to go, or this could be something that I'm taking a risk and it's really going to help me. So help me, Spirit, please. There's like that panic of, help me. Are you there? Anybody there? And sometimes it's crickets. Like, I don't know if you've ever had that experience where you're
Yes.
like, crickets,
Yep.
it's so hard. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And then there's like, this is why I have spirituality for skeptics, because I'm like asterisk if I have one. I feel like they probably get just super annoyed with me and super frustrated, because it's like I am able to take many steps forward and then, just kind of something throws me off. And I'm like, this is all a waste of time. I make all of this up. None of this is real. And then I become like a nihilist temporarily and I have to like get myself back on track.
Yeah. Such a normal part of the process, though.
Yeah.
It really is, because we all struggle with that. No matter, I've been doing this for so long. And I communicate with Spirit on a daily basis. And sometimes I'm even questioning. I've been sitting with this decision that I've had to make for a minute. And I'm just like, do I do it? Do I not? Do I do it? And I'm like, Spirit, help. And at this point, sometimes I feel like they want us to lean on our own inner compass and trust ourselves. And I think that's why they go flat, and because they need us to not rely on them. And they're there to help us, but they're not there to tell us what to do. And that's something that I figured out since the very beginning. So that's been difficult to navigate, but I feel like we all get there when we're meant to get there. And whatever decision we make, I feel like there's never a bad decision, because even though maybe it's not the best, but you're going to learn something from it, and it's never going to lead you astray. It's just going to teach you how to move differently, how to experience life in a different perspective with a new set of glasses, a new lens, So it could be extraordinary. Is there anything you would like to talk about or touch on within like your journey? Maybe some experiences that you had that could be helpful for anybody that's listening that is starting their journey, whether it's somebody who has left like their corporate job and they're just starting into this spiritual journey and just trying to explore, or just anything you would like to add.
Actually, I recorded a video on this yesterday. I was just editing it. I think that one thing that I was not aware of early on, that people who are moving more into this space, whether they want to learn mediumship from you or they just are curious about spiritual growth, like we've talked about, and I think this is true, the whole world is going through more of an awakening process right now. And social media is so loud, and I got this kind of download the other day that I needed to use my voice to call out what can happen with manipulation around spirituality. I had an experience with a mentor early on who was one of my big introductions to even like the idea of spirituality. It was like I was this blank canvas, and over a period of years, and there were so many wonderful things that came from it, but it also ended badly, that relationship. And I don't have a lot of connections in my life that don't end well. And this person, through time, essentially tried to make me dependent on them, to other people in my orbit as well. It was kind of like they positioned themselves as having the key to the secret of what was good and right and true in other people's worlds. And you had to pay that person lots and lots and lots of money and behave the way that they wanted you to in order to have access to that information. And it sounds like so silly when I recorded this video. I'm like, but there were just so many great things that came from it as well. And so I feel like mine is a long, multi-year example of this, but you see it a lot. I feel like you see a lot of that spiritual coercion, creation of dependency, manipulation. Like one thing about you, Erica, that I see all the time is you're just so encouraging people to do it. Like they can do it. They have these gifts. And I think that I always want long-term mentorship. I've worked with the same spiritual guide and mentor since 2021. I always want that, but she never makes me feel like it's something that I need or that I need to consult her in order to make the right decisions. And so again, it can happen in a lot of ways. I think inside of like coaching and mentorship containers online, like there can be a lot of messaging around things that create dependency, but also when people choose to exit, I witness this, like it's their ego, they're not ready, like there's something wrong with them. It can start to almost get these like little cult dynamics going on. And you can see it even just in social media content as people scroll. If you ever are made to feel like someone has the answers that you can't access without them, or that, I don't know. For me, it's just like an energetic difference because sometimes you'll see videos and it's like, okay, if you're seeing this, this is meant for you. And there's like just a great light energy to it versus other times you'll see it and you're like, okay, like this person is somehow trying to bring some darker or manipulative energy and like hook you into their orbit. I don't really know how to describe it. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. I'm sure you have probably better words for it, but I don't know, for whatever reason, I had some downloads last week that it was something I needed to start talking about just from the perspective of my own experience, but also perhaps like, and I don't actually like pay that much attention to other people and what they're doing online, but perhaps as it's already happening or as we all continue to seek more of this awakening process, I guess more actively, I just think it's something that people should be aware of is that while this space can be love and light and beautiful, it can also be incredibly dark, I think.
Yeah. And I'm just so happy you talked about that because it really is a problem. It's a problem. And I think that when people are vulnerable and they are just starting their spiritual path, it could be very difficult to discern. I think my language and how I speak to just the general public or my followers or anybody that comes across me, even my students, has always been never put me on a pedestal because you should be the one that's on it. You know, you should be the one that put yourself there. I'm just here to hold your hand, like literally hold your hand and just walk you through some steps. And if you take some tools to put in your toolbox, wonderful. And sometimes you might not be able to take it all. But I think the most important thing is to empower. And that's always just kind of been where I've been led since it was starting with intuitive exercises. And that really came from that book that we both read, Many Lives, Many Masters. There's just this little part in there that it really jumped out to me that if we are here and have these abilities and we have a sense of awareness that we can tap into to help other people, then that is my job. I mean, it could be anybody who read that, but for me, it felt like I needed to be that person that can tell people, you can do this too. It doesn't have to be somebody who has the key or somebody who creates this persona of them being special and you're not. And you need to come to me for this. You know, there's a lot of that within the spiritual community. And I see it across the board, especially with teachers who teach mediumship and psychism. You can learn this here with me and you're not going to get this anywhere else. And it's just very disheartening to see that because I'm a person and I think I'm struggling with that now. I'm trying to learn business etiquette, but I don't even know if that's a thing with sharing other people because I do mediumship, I teach mediumship. I'm always trying to help people find other safe spaces to learn. And that's just the way I work because I'm like, oh, you know, I love this person. They're a great medium. They hold amazing circles and they do this. And I'm happy to share that. But, you know, that's also not reciprocated. It's not reciprocated. And I don't expect it because that's just me. I do things without attaching any strings to it. But I know in my heart, I'm doing the right thing to help my students, because I don't want them to just sit there and just learn with me, because they need to experience everything. They need to experience a multitude of teacher circles and everywhere, because it's important for their process of learning with spirit and just going through the experiences on their own. I feel like spirit always has a way of interjecting. That was an experience that you needed to have so that you know what not to expect, what not to do, and not to be in those spaces, and just feel that energetic imprint. So you can sense it now, even in anybody's videos. You're like, yeah, no,
Yeah.
definitely not there.
And I think it maybe also, just as you're talking, I'm like, maybe I had to go through that to give people one very simple lesson. And I think that this is a really good litmus test for, is this a clear channel with good intentions, or is it not? If you're interacting with someone, whether as a student or just watching them on Instagram or whatever, does interacting with this person make you trust yourself more or less? I feel like that's a really easy way to start to discern if you're looking for leaders and teachers within the spiritual space.
That's great. So any of you listening out there, listen to Nicole. If you're looking for teachers and you're looking for somebody to lead you on your path, listen to that trust factor. Is this somebody I can trust or not? And I think that's a key to understanding where you are being led to, because you have to have that sense of feeling within. And I always feel like it starts like here. It starts in the chest and the heart, and even like that gut punch, just a knowing for some people. I love that you shared all these things, and especially just touching on that, because I think it's such an important part of the path for anybody that's stepping into this realm of work and just trying to figure out themselves, their spirituality. I call it a fingerprint. That's kind of what spirit gave me. It's like, our sense of awareness is very different. We all have a different frequency. We all tune into different frequencies on the radio. But for me, it's like a fingerprint. And that's what spirit kind of showed me, because it's very distinct to all of us. And same way in the spirit world, if I'm communicating with somebody and I'm reading for somebody else, but they share their spirit person, but I don't know that because I don't ask my clients for any information, but I'll feel the same fingerprint. For me, it's like, oh, I've sensed this before, like I've sensed this energy. And sure enough, there's a connection. We all have a specific fingerprint, and we all can sense and feel different things. And that's just our uniqueness, allowing ourselves to step into our own uniqueness and authenticity within our journey. And again, I think all experiences are needed to help us navigate ourselves, our evolution of where we're going to have and make better choices. So by no mistake, even sometimes we're like, dang it, why did I have to go through that? It was just horrible. And I could talk about so many different ones, but all necessary, because I wouldn't be sitting here right now having these conversations with you. Nicole, I just want to thank you so much for being here. Where can our listeners find you? I don't know if you offer anything, but I know that you have your podcast.
Yeah, Spirituality for Skeptics. You can find us over on YouTube if you like video. Of course, also on all the podcast platforms. And I post pretty regularly over on Instagram as well. Yeah, I think that's the best place for now. And I have a fun little side project. Speaking of not really understanding why you're guided towards certain things, but I started recently using AI to make fun little history documentaries. I live in Asheville, North Carolina, things from the Appalachian region. I think I had been saying out loud for quite a long time, I don't like AI. I'm not interested in AI. I wish I was interested in AI because I know it's the future. And then I do feel like spirit was like, but you love history and you like when people bring history back to life with AI. So I'm doing that. It's called Documenting Appalachia. If that's kind of your thing too. I don't know if that will go anywhere. I've committed to making a video a week for the rest of the year, but it's been fun. I feel like that's just being like, okay, you don't hate AI. You're going to find your way with it because you have to, and it's inevitable.
Yeah, that's a big topic of conversation. We could go down a
totally
whole
right.
with that, but yeah, it's here. So it's like, what do we do with it? How do we use it responsibly, where we can feed knowledge to people and wisdom? I think what you're doing, that's a fun creative project. We all have different outlets, and I think that that's amazing that you're sharing that with the public. So we will have all the links available if you're watching this on YouTube. And if you are listening in, I'll also have the links there. And you can find Nicole on all social media platforms through her name, Nicole Spencer, and Spirituality for Skeptics. So we will share those links as well. So thank you all. Thank you, Nicole, for sitting with me today and sharing your story. And yeah, I'm happy and just so honored to have had you here.
Thank you. Yes, absolutely.
Until next time, everyone.